Have you ever noticed how the absolute hardest pushers in sales often have the absolute worst numbers? It's wild, right? Well, let's dive right into this explainer because today we are completely rethinking everything you thought you knew about traditional sales. We're going to explore the behavioral psychology of moving people rather than just endlessly pushing products at them. It's a subtle shift, but I promise you it is massively impactful. We're talking about leaving behind that outdated era of forceful persuasion and stepping into the actual science of human behavior. Because deeply understanding the person sitting right across from you, that is hands down your greatest asset.
Now, think about this fascinating little paradox. People absolutely hate being sold, but they love to buy. Think about your own life for a second. When someone is aggressively pushing a product on you, maybe it's a kiosk at the mall or some unsolicited cold call, what happens? Your defensive walls instantly go up, right? You just feel cornered. But when you organically discover something you genuinely want or need, man, it's exciting. You feel completely in control. So your main job here isn't to push, not at all. It's to curate an atmosphere where they literally cannot wait to say yes. You're just facilitating their natural biological desire to find solutions that improve their lives.
To get to what we could call the end of selling, you've got to shift your mindset completely away from those old school high pressure tactics. Picture the difference between stepping onto a sleazy used car lot versus walking into a beautifully designed modern tech store. On the car lot, you are instantly on guard. You're waiting for the trap. But in that curated tech store, you're invited to explore, play around, and ask questions without feeling cornered. That right there is a true buying atmosphere. Your entire focus needs to be on making the environment safe and comfortable for the buyer. It's about creating a space where the friction simply melts away and the prospect feels like they're the one in the driver's seat.
So, how do we actually build that safe space? We start with a concept called tactical empathy. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't about just feeling sorry for someone. It is a highly strategic conversational toolkit designed specifically to lower defenses. And a massive part of it actually comes down to your voice. You want to channel what we call the late-night FM DJ voice. Seriously, when you consciously drop your pitch and slow down your delivery, it physically affects the other person's biology. It triggers this neurological response that literally slows their heart rate and signals safety. It instantly puts them at ease, completely bypassing their fight or flight instincts, so you can actually have a real productive conversation without all that usual resistance.
Once you've established that physical calm, you're perfectly set up for an incredibly actionable tactic known as mirroring. The process here is almost suspiciously straightforward. Step 1, listen closely. I mean, truly listen without frantically drafting your next response in your head. Step 2, gently repeat the last 1 to 3 words they just said, but inflect it upward like a question. So if your prospect says, "We are really struggling with our current software," you pause and softly reply, "Struggling with your current software?" It sounds almost too simple to work, but it is deeply powerful. It taps directly into our human desire to be understood. It essentially forces their brain to elaborate, keeping them talking and revealing absolute gold without you ever having to interrogate them. Okay, so as we're using these empathetic tools to gather intel, we hit a critical phase where so many well-meaning professionals just completely drop the ball. They start pitching features. Look, when you rattle off a laundry list of what your product does or its fancy technical specs, you are making it all about your solution instead of their actual problem. And here's the cold, hard truth of human behavior. Nobody buys a feature. They buy a result. It's like that classic hardware store analogy, right? Nobody goes to the hardware store because they really want a 1-inch drill bit. They go because they desperately need a 1-inch hole in their wall. So stop talking about the shiny drill bit and start focusing heavily on the hole. To properly focus on that result, you need to master what we call pitching the gap. I want you to imagine a massive chasm separating 2 completely different realities for your prospect. Over on one side, you've got their current state. This is the pain, the friction, the agonizing day-to-day problems they are utterly stuck dealing with. Now, way over on the far side, you have their future state. That's the dream scenario. Operations are running smoothly, the stress is gone, life is good. Your job when moving people is to vividly identify and articulate both of these states for them. Remember, you aren't selling a widget here. You're selling the sturdy bridge that gets them across that massive chasm of anxiety. And identifying that gap brings us to the ultimate psychological tipping point. It's driven by a little something behavioral economists call status quo bias. Basically, humans are hardwired to prefer things staying exactly the same, simply because change is scary and it takes a lot of effort. But you will know you've successfully pitched the gap when the perceived risk of staying exactly the same, just sitting there in that painful current state, becomes significantly higher than the actual financial price of your solution.
Once the pain of their problem heavily outweighs the pain of your payment, the decision to buy becomes an absolute lock. They realize on a gut level that doing nothing is going to cost them way more than buying your product. Now, before we get into actually closing the deal, I want you to ask yourself a quick question. What is the absolute number one rule in selling? Take a second, really think about it. Is it the old always be closing mantra? Is it knowing your product inside and out? Mastering the counterintuitive rule we're about to unpack is non-negotiable if you want to effectively manage human behavior. And honestly, it goes against pretty much every instinct you probably have when walking into a high-stakes conversation.
Here is the surprising answer. Always agree with the customer. Now I know, that sounds completely crazy at first. What if they have this massive misconception? What if they are literally just flat out wrong about your entire industry? Well, here is the secret to human psychology. The second you argue, you trigger what's called an amygdala hijack in their brain. Their defensive, emotional lizard brain just takes over. But even if they are dead wrong, agreeing first instantly bypasses that defense mechanism. It neutralizes the conflict and sends a clear signal, hey, I am on your side. And once you validate their perspective, you finally get access to their logical brain, which means you can actually start guiding them and moving forward together.
Everything we've been talking about, the tactical empathy, dropping into that FM DJ voice, mirroring, pitching the gap, and leading with agreement, it all feeds directly into one big thing, the science of trust. In this game, you really need to let go of the idea of just getting people to like you. Likability is super superficial. It's fleeting. A fun little chat over coffee doesn't secure a lasting partnership. People buy, especially long-term, from people they deeply implicitly trust. It's a proven fact that businesses built on high trust see massively higher client retention and referral rates. So your number one focus has to be on building that deep, enduring trust through genuine understanding and consistent, empathetic communication. Which brings us to the ultimate crossroads in your career. You essentially have to choose between two totally different paths. Are you going to be a peddler, just chasing after a one-time commission? Or are you going to step up, become a trusted advisor, make a friend, and earn an absolute fortune? Think about the contrast. A peddler is chronically stressed out. They're constantly burning through leads, pushing products for a quick buck, and just moving on to the next victim. An advisor, though? An advisor is calm. They lean on deep relationships. They create an environment of total trust, confidently guide their prospect across that gap to their dream state, and secure a lifelong, lucrative partnership. The difference in your daily stress levels, let alone your income, is just staggering. Look, ultimately, getting people to move isn't some cheap psychological trick, and it's definitely not a magic script you just memorize. It requires treating this as the true science of human behavior that it is. But just knowing the psychology isn't enough to pay the bills, right? You also have to be completely fanatical about your pipeline. That means obsessively qualifying your leads and knowing exactly who you can actually help so you never waste your time. And most importantly, you've got to execute these fundamentals every single day. What does that actually look like in the real world? It means consciously slowing down your voice on every single call. It means practicing mirroring in every meeting. And it means actively fighting that urge to just pitch features. Consistency with these exact tools is what separates the struggling peddlers from the top-tier advisors. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to chew on. The very next time you pick up the phone or the next time you walk into a pivotal meeting, ask yourself, are you truly executing the fundamentals of human behavior, or are you just falling back into the lazy habit of trying to sell? It is so incredibly easy to revert back to pitching features when the pressure is on. But please remember the core lesson here today. Stop pushing products, build unshakable trust, successfully pitch that gap between their pain and their dream, and start creating an atmosphere where people absolutely cannot wait to say yes. Thanks for hanging out and exploring this behavioral framework with me. Now get out there, slow your voice down, and start moving people.